What is up, everybody? We're back here once again talking about the biggest ups and downs of 2024. What was our biggest surprise? What was our biggest disappointment? Yo, do us all a favor though by sharing this video, liking it, subscribing, and commenting. Make sure you stick around. We're trying to grow a killer community over here, and we can only do it with you. Now let's get into the topic, boys. Where do you want to start? Do we start with the biggest disappointment or the biggest surprise?
Let's end on a good note. Let's start with the bad and end on a good note.
All right, who wants to go first? Any takers?
Not it.
Scott, all right. Michael, you're first.
I'll go first. I'm not going to use the dreaded. I'm not going to name the dreaded C game. By the way, I think that's too low of fruit. So everybody knows what that one was. So I don't want to go there.
That's fair. That's an easy pick.
Yeah, that's an easy one, right? I think to me the biggest disappointment, and really the news that we just got a couple weeks ago, we talked about it, right? Xbox, right? They, I think, are the biggest disappointment of 2024, right? Every single first-party game that they tried to do. Now, Indiana Jones is starting to hit, but as I'm going to say, right, they also just announced exclusives are done, right? They have said, we're not doing exclusives anymore, which they announced it in 2024, so I'll put it as part of this year. All of their first-party games have absolutely flopped. Their good one in Indiana Jones is coming to PlayStation next year. I think, to me, Xbox is the biggest disappointment, because to me, this year has basically said, you do not need to buy an Xbox if it is to play games. You buy an Xbox for the accessibility of Game Pass, but then you can do that on PC. So if you have PC Game Pass, why do I want an Xbox? I think Game Pass is doing some great things, right? Day one exclusives. Technically, you save some money, right? If you're going to get multiple games, all for that. But I think, to me, the biggest disappointment this year has just been the fact that Xbox has essentially conceded the console war and said, we're going to make a console. And also the S, by the way, has just completely dropped the ball this year. No Black Myth Wukong still, by the way, on Xbox. No Tree to Last Song, a game that we all enjoyed, just now came out on Xbox, right? To me, it's Xbox hands down. Everything they've done has just turned to coal this year, and they have basically said, we're not doing exclusives anymore. Go buy a PlayStation if you want exclusives.
Wow, that's fair. That is very fair. I can't say I disagree with you either, though, Michael. That's the unfortunate part. I like to play the devil's advocate on this side and say, hey, you know what? They are, and we talk about it a lot on the show too, is that they're really just pushing Game Pass and less about the console war, right? One of the reasons why they push less and less the console war, because PlayStation's just won.
Because they're losing,
yeah, right? Because they lost the console war. They don't have a hope now in catching up. You launch a new console, you're already so locked in on PlayStation, everything's going to move forward with you. You're already locked in on Xbox, everything's going to move forward. Kinda, because there's nothing moving forward there that's different than anywhere else, right? So it's one of those things. If you want to play Indiana Jones day one, you just need Game Pass. That's the biggest win right there. So I think Game Pass continues to be strong on the Xbox branding side of things. The console they just don't care. Got you in? Yeah. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this one because I'm not pleased by this maneuver. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think this is a great idea in terms of the brand of Xbox. But I see them as kind of being the signal. I think Xbox. Well, first of all, they don't want to just sink their own company. Nobody does. So I think they have what they believe is a good idea and looking to the future. I think they see a future that doesn't have this console, that console, this console. I think they see a future as you have satisfying hardware. You have the proper hardware that can run these things. That's all that matters. And maybe I think what we might see eventually is that these video game brands, these console makers, become hardware makers. They become graphics card kind of makers. The way that Nvidia doesn't have any sort of nothing's locked down exclusive. You're just simply buying their hardware to be able to access anybody's games. And I think that's kind of the future. Whether that future is in 20 years or 10 years or whatever, I think that's, I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, no.
Truthfully.
Sure.
But I think this is kind of Xbox pivoting to get into that place where, all right, well, nobody's buying consoles anymore. We're going to just give our games out everywhere because it's the only way we can grow our market. Because now, we're dealing with a new console generation again, but we're 4 or 5 years into it now, and I think the sales are starting to peter off as they normally would. Of course, you're going to get in there if you have. I have a Series X. I'm not going to get another one. Why would I? So like, we're going to see those numbers be satisfied. how long are we really going to wait until we see another Xbox Series, whatever awful name they want to give it? How long do we really have to wait until that's a necessity for games when we haven't even touched the potential of the consoles we're dealing with? So I think it's looking at, instead of every decade we're going to sell a console, just do away with all that. Every game we come out with, we're going to try and have more control over, but those are going to be the money makers. And I think that's the future. I think they're just a couple pages ahead of us, and I don't know if we can read those pages yet, if they make sense. There's been a lot of talk about in the past generation going to cloud and how that would kind of kickstart this revolution, but I just don't believe the internet capability is there for the majority of the planet, myself
Yep.
included. So I think that's far future, but this is one step along the way.
I think they're prepping themselves for the cloud. I think that's what their key is, their goal, right? With Xbox Game Pass, cloud streaming, they're working on a handheld. Why? Because they just want you to be able to take everything and go. Doesn't matter what you play on anymore, just play our games. That's their focus. They're turning third party, basically, is what they're doing. Scott, what is your biggest disappointment of 2024?
My biggest disappointment, and this is something I've talked about a few times, but it's the social backlash to even a good product. Okay. And I understand there's a lot of nuance to this topic. So I understand people have a gut reaction to things, and that's natural.
Yeah.
I myself have very opinionated. That's kind of what I do. But
Yep.
the idea that you want to dismiss and destroy something, I can't get behind that. I thought I was a bit
Let's
of a
talk about
bully, but I
Dragon
can't.
Age, the Veilguard, shall we, Scott? Because that's what we're beating around
Yeah.
here, right?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Dragon Age: The Veilguard. People find little nitpicks to really blow up into something big when they really weren't there to begin with. I've had some friendships suffer now because of trying to voice these opinions of just, hey, maybe you should explore what you're critiquing. Maybe you should play it, get part way through it, and then tell me that it's bad. But to have this kind of big hate reaction that leads to the entire review situation. Games developers have to put out their things, their social media presence gets censored, or they turn off the comments before they make a release or a reveal trailer or something like that. And that's awful. Like, again, Tales of the Shire. That's something I had no idea. The creativity of some depraved minds that could find things to twist to make such a cute, an innocent looking game somehow is a work of the devil. And I can't understand it. So my biggest complaint, to summarize this, I feel like we're seeing the satanic panic of the 80s, but it's a social panic of the 2020s, and it's awful. I hate it.
The internet doesn't turn off and the trolls don't go away, right? That's basically what it comes down to. And it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, like a Dragon Age, the Veilguard experience, it's their loss. It is kind of how I look at it now, because they're missing out on one of the best games of the year. That's kind of where I stand. But yeah, it's very unfortunate just to have this. I want to get into one of the worst situations we're experiencing, though. One of my biggest disappointments as a whole is the industry. Our industry right now just sucks. It is the biggest frustration. I'm not even a developer. My heart goes out more times this year, almost on a weekly basis. Michael and I talk about it on the Daily Show of, there goes another studio. That one's laying off other people. This one's now getting closed. Let's talk about Concord, for example. We didn't want to bring it up. How can you not? Concord didn't hit. Studio's now just gone, right? Just gone. Arcane Austin, another. Like, there's so many beloved studios
at this point.
We can't keep up, right? Like, it was the Game Changer Award this year for the Game Awards, because I can't remember his name. I'm going blank on his name. Amir, I want to say it is. And he actually started a whole platform to help everybody who got laid off to find another job. Like, that's how impactful it has been this year, that there have been so many jobs, so many layoffs, so many cuts, so many closures. It's been a heartbreak to watch and cover on an almost weekly basis. So when a week goes by and we don't say a studio closed, oh man, like, it's kind of refreshing, right? because now we're losing that creativity. We're losing somebody else from the industry that maybe not want to go back into the industry. And if you're on the outside looking in, going, I want to be a game dev, do you really? Like,
Oh, I don't think you do right now.
well,
No.
and that's just my biggest concern. Now, we could talk about how the pandemic put everybody at a high. They need to hire, and now we're starting to see the settles of that kind of wean off, and now we're getting cut. But it's just been a frustrating year of losing so many jobs, so many good opportunities, other games getting canceled because they've had to cut people. Frustrating. All right, now I'm done.
I want to shout out. I believe Ryan Brown put it together a thread on Twitter about this, and it goes back years, all the way back to 2018, I believe. But it's just you can scroll that endlessly, and each one of those posts represents potentially hundreds of people. So it's dizzying to say the least.
Let's turn it up a bit here, boys. Let's talk about something good. What's the biggest surprise of the year? Michael, you can start this one too.
I think for me, the biggest surprise has been first-time games having big successes, right? We're not seeing sequels. We're not seeing remasters and sort of dominate, right? Astrobot. I get it was a game, kind of like a package with the PlayStation, right? But this was its first foray into its own standalone game. Absolutely killed it. Black Myth Wukong, right? Another first-time game. Absolutely killed it. And it really feels like we aren't inundated, right? Like Baldur's Gate 3, great game. There's a 3 after, right? It was just another game in that line. I think this year has been hopefully telling to a lot of developers that people will play unique IPs, new IPs, if they're a good game, right? I'm one of those people where I'm like,
Inotria,
another great one, right? I'm tired of number 2. No, I mean Metaphor Refantasia, right? I'm tired of number 2s. I'm tired of number 3s. Give me a new IP. Yeah, remasters are worse. DLCs are okay, right? I don't mind when you expand on a product, but
sure.
I'm very happy that it seems like a new game, Balatro, another indie game, right? Not based on anything, right? Fantastic game. I'm hoping that's my biggest surprise. We didn't have to rely on sequels. We didn't have to rely on sagas. We were able to play new IPs this year, and they absolutely killed it. And I hope that is a telling sign for the industry that we'll play new games if they're good.
That's exactly along the lines that I was thinking, but I was thinking in terms of Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones was just the absolute smash out of the park. My favorite Indiana Jones property ever created, and I'm super happy that it appears, at least, again, harkening back to my complaints, it appears that everybody is of the same mind on this one. This is a great game, and we're all enjoying it, and I'm even happy that it's going to PlayStation. And then, because that pocket of some secluded people will then be able to play it as well, in the same way that I don't have a PlayStation, and I cheer every time it goes to PC.
Yeah, which is fair, right? Like, yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people, you're waiting, like, PlayStation goes to PC. You're talking about, the Last of Us Part 2 next year coming to PC. A lot of people are now waiting on that, right? You were waiting on Ghost of Tsushima getting there. You were waiting on God of War getting there. Yeah, I think one of the biggest pleasures this year is, oh man, I have so many. Like, well, I don't even know where to start. I never really pinned down anything. I think Astrobot was a big surprise for me. I think that was one that you can sit down, you talk about a family-friendly game that just kind of swept the world. And this was one of those games, right? Where you can, hey, have you played this? Hey, have you checked this out? Look at this. And the homage that they pay into for PlayStation for 30 years of PlayStation was absolutely incredible. You're finding all these little characters, such a warm touch to what feels like such a saturated, dark industry that we've been in lately. So to have something bright, uplifting is just such a welcome change. Again, talking about bright, I'm going to get into an Otri of the last song as well. Dark Souls changing the formula up a little bit here with something bright, something unique, and not dark and gringy. There's nothing wrong with Dark Souls. There's nothing wrong with Elden Ring. Those are fantastic games. For me, Inotria stood out because I'm not a Dark Souls guy whatsoever. So it was just a couple big surprises for myself this year, really.
It's not visually depressing like Dark Souls would be.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, no, for sure. There's always something good. There's always something bad. We want to hear from you, though. Hit us up right here. Leave us a comment. We want to hear. What's your biggest surprise? Your biggest disappointment? 2024.